Another day, another My Life with ADHD blog. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the challenges I face. And I'm going to be cheating a wee bit. I have a list in my journal. I'll just show you guys because you guys have ADHD too, or you know or love someone with ADHD. And let me turn that off. Speaking of ADHD, let me turn off my Discord, which is a huge distraction for me. No, not all the way up, all the way off. Let me turn that off because that is a huge distraction for me, and distractions are one of the big challenges I face. But I was showing you guys my journal. It's a Lectotherm journal. I got into fountain pens in 2017 thanks to my friend Heidi Black, and keeping a journal has been a huge asset to me. But we're not talking about assets. We're staying on topic today, kind of. We're talking about challenges. So, some of the challenges I face, I'm just going to go over them as like an overview and then we'll go into them, is I have anxiety problems, I have depression problems, I have romantic problems, I have focus and obsession problems, I have forgetfulness problems, I have social problems, I have a problem with dropping words mid-sentence and word salading because my brain will come up with two words that like synonyms. Or two words that slightly vary and it can't decide which one to go for, so it'll mush the two together, which worked for Shakespeare but doesn't work for me. Lost trains of thought is a huge one. Those of you who watch this channel for my art videos y'all know that. And then I talk too much. And these are all challenges, things that I deal with, problems I try to accommodate for. These have all been a part of my life since I could talk. My mom likes to she likes to tell me, and she'll tell other people too, that they couldn't wait for me to start talking, and as soon as I did, I couldn't shut up. She has stories about, so my grandparents lived 2 hours away in Picayune, Mississippi, and we would drive every weekend to go visit them, because they live kind of out in the country, and they weren't coming to us, so we had to go to them, which was fine, because I loved visiting them. And my mom says that I would talk the entire time there and then sleep the entire time back until she bought like silly songs tapes, and then I would sing along with those. So she found a way to harness my energy and engage it in a way that was beneficial and suitable for me, a young child. And this was back in the day. I didn't have a Game Boy. My parents were like no video game people for kids, and that's because they had two children with ADHD. So, no video games, there was nothing to entertain me in the car, and I couldn't read yet. So, I was definitely a little chatterbox, and she definitely did not have the energy to focus on driving and focus on talking to her small child. So, I've always talked too much. So, I'm going to work in order of that list now that you guys got a little overview. Hopefully, this vlog will be a little bit shorter than last week's vlog. If not, we'll deal. We're ADHD, we're here to chill. And hopefully, this is not a vlog intended to depress you guys. This is a vlog intended to make you feel like you're not alone. So if you want to reply in the comments, if you're comfortable replying in the comments or replying with a vlog with some of the challenges that you struggle with, I would love to hear from you guys. We can have a little ADHD solidarity. So, the Discord is, I have two computers and it's on both. I am also, and speaking of challenges, I am also battling through a migraine today. So I'm very light sensitive, and as you guys can see, I have multiple lights and they're all in my eyes. So if I start covering my eyes, I'm sorry. I'm trying to power through, trying to get these scheduled before I leave for Japan. So anxiety, let's start with anxiety, okay? So anxiety has literally always been a problem for me. I can't remember a time it wasn't a problem for me. And it isn't just ADHD based. I grew up in a family that had a lot of problems. My dad was a heavy drinker all my childhood, and he kind of took that out on us. And there was a lot of yelling and a lot of screaming. And then I was also raised at a babysitter where there was no structure. And you couldn't tell whether she was going to hit you over the head with a wooden spoon really hard or just kind of laugh off whatever you did. So even without the ADHD, there was a lot of insecurity in my life. There wasn't a lot of stability in my life. I always felt like I was walking a tightrope. So I personally cannot tell where somewhat abusive childhood ends and ADHD begins. So those of you who maybe grew up in like a nice, loving childhood environment, surrounded by grandparents, aunts, uncles, and parents who loved you, who have ADHD, if you could kind of chime in and help me out here, this would be huge, because for me, I can't differentiate where my anxiety over my childhood versus ADHD. Now, there's some things that are like totally ADHD, okay? Like I told you guys in the last vlog, my mom used to have to take me back to school, right, to copy down my spelling list because I would forget. And I was talking to someone else who is not ADHD, who grew up at the same time in a very similar school system, and he says it was a huge problem for him too, and he wasn't ADHD at all. That the teachers, he said he remembered teachers just forgetting to say anything about it, and it would be on like the backboard. So like if you weren't, just like normal children who are not, do not have any sort of learning disabilities would have trouble remembering. So apparently this was just a terrible system. And I remember, totally tangential, I remember when I was student teaching that this was at a time when kids had smartphones. And a lot of the teachers would turn a blind eye to them whipping out their cell phones to take a picture of their spelling words on their phones. And I remember thinking that was genius. Like, smartphones would have made my smartphones have made my life phenomenal as an ADHD person. I'm sure you guys can agree. But like, as a young child, a smartphone would have been my best friend, especially that camera and record function. But, you know, it was character building to suffer like that, right? So, those spelling lists caused a lot of anxiety, and I would have a lot of homework anxiety about forgetting things or forgetting papers. And even though, and I wasn't like a neat child. I'm not a neat adult. That's another one of my challenges, is that I really struggle with physical organization of multiple items. But my mom was really good about staying on top of me for that. So when I was young, I only had one school bag. It was one of those big school bags, because you had teachers who wanted you to bring every book for every subject every day, right? So like you're a 50-pound child carrying 50 pounds of books. But I'm so hard on teachers, I'm sorry. I'm so glad things are changing. But it was like a lot to mentally remember. And I'm from the tail end of the generation that it's character building to yell at kids and to shame kids for forgetting their books. And although for many children in their IEPs and 504 plans there are accommodations for classroom sets of books, many teachers wouldn't actually have those classroom sets of books, right? And I was one of those kids who did not have access to a classroom set of books. How amazing, right? And the excuse was like, well, if we have a set of books for you, we have to have a set of books for every student in the class. That sounds great. Like, so I had a lot of anxiety from school about getting my assignments done, getting them done to get that 100, because I mentioned in my last video my mom would ground me for B's, and her rationale for that was that she could tell I wasn't doing my best. I'd been tested multiple times, I'd had several IQ tests done, so she knew I was an intelligent child. So, you know, there's stuff that happened in the classroom that I didn't tell her about until I was an adult, because I didn't realize how, like, that's not right. And telling her as an adult, she's really horrified that I didn't tell her some of these things. So, you know, it's kind of a combination of, I never know when enough is enough. I never know when to cut it off. I never know when to be like, okay, this is crazy. You've more than done your best. You've more than accommodated for the situation. So, like, as an adult, now as an artist, I never stop trying to up my game. And there's, like, I know there are hard limits for me, and I still will push myself, and then I'll beat myself up about it, and that's a lot of anxiety and depression over that. So, school, and then transitioning into adult life, school has always been a huge cause of anxiety. In fact, before every convention I do, I have an anxiety dream that I'm back in high school. And I'm really excited to be back in high school because I'm back with all my adult intelligence, but I can't find my schedule, and I can't pull up my class schedule on my phone, and I can't find my planner, and I can't find my ID, and I can't fit into my uniform. And I wonder how familiar this is for you guys, all the things ADHD people have trouble with. So, anxiety is a big factor, a controlling factor of my life, to the point where I saw a psychologist about it, and because I had anxiety and depression, and he pointed out that I also had anger issues, which at the time I was like, oh, that's hilarious. I do not. And now like 10 years later, I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, he was super right, and I couldn't see it. So what he had recommended at the time was that if I want to get it treated, I need to be really focused on getting it treated. I shouldn't do it while I'm doing grad school. I shouldn't do it while doing X. I shouldn't do it while doing Y, because if I saw treatment for my depression, my anxiety was going to spike. And if I saw treatment for my anxiety, my depression was going to spike. So this is before beta blockers were really a thing, so I'm really hoping that in the future I can get some healthcare options that cover mental health, because I used to pay out of pocket. I used to pay $280 a month, so that I would have healthcare coverage that also covered mental, but they wouldn't cover out of state, and all the doctors I would trust to see are in Louisiana. So, so I know there's a solution for the anxiety out there that sounds like a really good solution for someone like me, like the beta blockers, which will block your body's physical response to anxiety, which is the thing that's the worst for me, because I just feel like somebody sucker punched me in the gut. I feel sick immediately, my hands, over dumb things like a Discord conversation, right? My hands will start shaking really, really bad. Like, the physical reactions to anxiety for me are bonkers, and I don't like living my life that way, and my cat really wants to jump in my lap, and we'll see how this goes. So, anxiety. I talked a lot about anxiety. Let's talk about depression. So, I've had a lot of reasons to be depressed in my life. My father was an alcoholic, and then he died of lung cancer, and now I'm this adult artist who is approaching her mid-30s, and like, I have nothing, although I'm doing the best I can, I'm producing a lot of work, I feel like I have just nothing at all to show for my life. And I have this higher education degree, I have an MFA, and I can't find work in the city I live in, and so I have a lot of reasons to feel depressed. And the ADHD does not help with that, because I am always, it doesn't matter how hard I try, I'm always just not quite good enough. And a lot of that is that attention to detail. I just don't have that attention to detail. I just don't have the ability to put that time in. So like, my drawing skills, while they might continue to improve, they're never going to get beyond a certain point. I just know this intrinsically. And like, my painting skills, while they might improve, there's going to be a point where I'm just never going to get better, because that attention to detail in that capacity is just something I completely lack. And then I have like a Kickstarter coming up, which is just all attention to detail. And then it kind of merges in with the anxiety, right? So like, having ADHD has given me a lot of social anxiety, because I've always been weird, and I've always talked too much, and I've always been like someone people just don't like I'm annoying, you know, like I grew up hearing my name and annoying in the same sentence all the time. Thankfully, awkward wasn't like a thing, because it would have been annoying and awkward. So it's hard for me to engage people I respect and I look up to, because I don't know if I will ever be able to shake feeling like I'm just always annoying. Always annoying. And people talk to me because they have to. Or they talk to me because they feel sorry for me. Or they talk to me because they've got some like nice quota, and Becca, Be Nice to Becca, is high on that nice quota. So, this cycle of depression and anxiety, and like, I'm afraid to apply for opportunities in the field I love, because I just know I'm not good enough. Like, I can see other people's work, and I can see my work, and it's just like not good enough. And then, you know, I'll think about it, and I'll be like, well, no, it is, like, it fits the criteria, but, right? So like, working as a professional artist is already a very anxious and depressing field. I work from home, I work alone, most of my interactions with other humans are through the internet, I can't see their faces, I don't go outside enough, I don't get enough exercise, like all of the things that are not good for ADHD people is the life of an artist. And when I decided to pursue this career, what I'd really wanted, and what I still really want, is I wanted a studio job. I wanted a job where I went in, I drew what somebody told me to draw for 8 hours a day, I followed their rubric, I followed their guidelines, I did what they wanted, I gave them what they wanted, and then I went home and I did for Becca stuff. That is what I wanted, and that is what I still want. However, like, the gig economy has really screwed that up. The gig economy is no friend to an ADHD person, let alone an ADHD artist. There is no stability, there is no loyalty, there is no care for the individual. If you're even a little bit of a problem for any reason, they don't ever have to hire you again because you're not on a contract. It doesn't matter if your work is good enough. just talking about it makes me really like, right? So, depression has always been something I've really struggled with, especially as I got older. I was suicidal as a teen, and that's something that's hard to talk about. I don't mind talking about it. Here comes the cat. I don't mind talking about it because I think it can help other people, but it's not, I don't want to like glorify it or use it for pity, and a lot of people seem to think that's why I bring it up, because I can bring it up a little bit. I'm a little cavalier when I bring it up, which is just my personality. When I'm talking to strangers, I put on like, and it ties in with the social problems. Thank you. It's just easier for me to be cavalier because it puts up a shell between me and the feelings I really feel, and then how people respond to those feelings. And I was also suicidal in 2015, but it wasn't I wasn't acting on it, whereas when I was a teenager, I was actively acting on it. So when I say that mental health care was not available for me growing up, I really mean it. Things were different then. Things are different now. There's lots better, there's lots better resources out there. So I don't want you guys to go through what I went through then. And if you can avoid going through what I went through in 2015, that would be great too, because I was really isolated in 2015. I only had like 2 people I could talk to, period. And one of them was my boyfriend, you know, is my boyfriend. So, and I'd gotten to the point in undergrad where I had a lot of friends, a lot of good friends that I would talk to in depth about things and would do things with. And then I went to Savannah and I had friends, but I didn't have as many friends. And then I moved to Nashville and I had no friends. And I still have very few friends here. I do have friends now, but very few. It's been very hard. And some of that ties in with the ADHD, where I just like speak my mind and tick people off and really get on people's bad sides. And they have no reason to like give me the benefit of the doubt or keep me around. So they get rid of me. I don't know how common that is for some of you guys, but this has been like my life. Every 4 years I have to start all over again with friends. So, I'm kind of used to it, but it's also really painful every time. So we talked about anxiety, we talked about depression, we talked a little bit about social, we'll talk a little bit about romantic, and I'll try not to get too TMI. So when I was a teenager, I would be really infatuated with somebody, and I didn't really have a problem getting the guys I was interested in to be interested in me. I don't think I was pretty. And looking at pictures of me, I know I wasn't pretty, but I was also interested in nerdy guys. So, because that was like, I was super obsessed. I had like a thing where I wouldn't date anybody if they weren't into anime too, because I was so obsessed with it that I knew that it would not last a week if we didn't have a common interest. And I apologize, the migraine's acting up. So like, I'd be super obsessed with them, and then I'd break up with them in 4 months. Like, I'd get tired, I'd get bored, whatever. And this pattern continued all through high school until my senior year, where I kind of fell hard for somebody and I was like super obsessed with him. But even after like 6 months, I was thinking about breaking up with him, and then he dumped me, which made like, I don't know, like it like really hit my obsessed buttons, right? Like, I was exactly like the shoujo heroines that I just so dreamed of being. I was just like Hatsumi from Hot Gimmick, and it was bad news, right? Bad romance. Oh, here comes the cat. Speaking of bad romance. So my dating patterns post high school did change, and it's one of those things where I have to like work at not being a selfish brat and have to work at being compassionate to other people, because when you're with somebody for a significant amount of time, it's not like people who you see every now and then but you don't really know. You have to like, wow, I'm not like trying to give you guys dating advice, I'm just walking you guys through my thought process. Like, there's going to be times when things are boring. Like, your life is just boring. And my life as an artist is incredibly boring. And I'm always seeking stimulation. And, like, a new partner is always stimulating, right? Like, it's exciting and it's a new person and you can pick their brain and learn lots of new things. And then it's realizing that you love somebody beyond just that initial stimulation and putting the effort in is important, right? To like lasting romantic happiness if you're ADHD. And my mom says that I only dated dudes who had ADHD also. And I don't know. A lot of them had a lot of the same traits, but not necessarily were officially diagnosed. And I don't know if it's because if I dated guys like that, like my current partner Joseph is not ADHD at all. He is very, very focused, very steady. He's like kind of the opposite of me in those regards. But like the guys I liked in high school, a lot of them came from troubled families, like me, so we had something to bond over. They were very smart, but they didn't do well in school. Unlike me, school was like where I had my life figured out. They were very creative. They thought outside the box. They were usually very funny. They usually had these like outside of school hobbies, like instruments or video games. Or not that I'm like cracking on video games, but like, you know, come on, you have some other hobbies, right? Or like D&D, right? They wanted to be storytellers, or they were just these creative people, and I just really felt like I jived really well with them. But we'd have like these intense, explosive fights, right? Which was also very stimulating, engaging for me. So I recognized that like my dating pattern in high school was really bad. I don't want to say it was like abusive, but it was not healthy. It was not, nobody was happy. It was not good for anybody. So my ADHD has definitely, and my need for constant stimulation has caused romantic problems for sure. So going from there, we're going to talk about focus and obsession. And I have a upbeat post about hyperfocus, or an upbeat vlog about hyperfocus coming up in the future. But focus is both a curse and a blessing for me. Focus is how I can spend 8 hours a day, every day, painting watercolor pages. Focus is also how I spent 10 years writing about art supplies in depth on my blog. Focus is how I can get from point A to point B and seem like I'm not ADHD, because I chose to pursue a life in things that I was obsessed with, and that's socially acceptable. So in some ways, focus is great, but I'm a workaholic. I will work from the time I get up, regardless, let's not talk about when I get up. I will work from the time I get up, which is usually noon, I know, right? Until like 1 in the morning, every single day, every day of the week. And then I get burned out, right? And I'm depressed, and I'm like, oh, my life is never gonna change. Nothing's ever happening for me. I work so hard. And I'm making fun of myself, because that's me. That's what I do. I do those things, and then I hit this wall, and then I wonder why. And it's because I never came up for air. I never stopped to take a break. I never ate lunch. I didn't eat lunch during the day, or I didn't get enough water. I didn't get enough exercise, or I didn't do anything that was actually nice for Becca, the human being who lives in a meat body, as opposed to Becca, this driving force of passion who desperately wants to be a comic artist and really wants people to read her work. So focus is a blessing and a curse for me, and it also turns into obsession. And it makes me, I mean, no one likes talking about their flaws, right, publicly. And I also don't want to make it sound like I am super crazy. I'm like moderately crazy, but not like super crazy. But I do have a tendency of getting like super obsessed with things, and usually they're physical objects or categories of physical objects. Super obsessed with things, and then I'll drop it in a month, or I'll still utilize it, but it's not as prevalent in my life. And you guys, I think, if my editing schedule reflected when I recorded, you guys would be able to see that, because I'll go through spats where I just do every water-based marker I can get my hands on, every alcohol marker I can get my hands on, every watercolor product, every this, every that, right? Everything in a category within art supplies, of course, because that's my main obsession. So, sorry, the migraine is getting like really intense, so I'm going to try to wrap it up. This is also getting longer than I thought. Going along with that, let's talk about dropped words, word salad, and lost trains of thought. So right now I am hyper focusing on you guys. I am talking to you guys. I am talking to you guys about ADHD. These are things I've thought about a lot. But when I'm recording, I will lose my train of thought very often. When I'm writing, I'll lose my train of thought very often, but you guys can't tell because I can pick it up. If there is noise in the background, if there's a cat playing with a jingle ball or tearing up the carpet in the background, if the doorbell rings, if Discord beeps, if anything happens, it ruins my train of thought, and then I have trouble picking it up. Sometimes I will delay my train of thought, so you guys might notice when I'm doing my watercolor videos, I will kind of extend a sentence, and that's usually because I'm trying to control my breathing so I can pull the line properly. And I know it's not it doesn't make it a more interesting video, but it's something I have to do to be able to record what I'm recording and talk to you guys and do the best work I can. So lost train of thought, it wasn't such an issue for me until recently, like the past 2 years when I started doing YouTube. I used to be on the Sequel Lab podcast as a PJ, and that was not really, the lost trains of thought weren't a super big problem, but my impulsivity and my need to interrupt people, I guess, so I could get my idea out before I lost it, right? I'm sure you guys can identify with that. But, like, that was more of a problem. But then there was this dude on our podcast who would just, like, literally shout me down. So it got to the point where I just didn't even want to talk on it anymore. But, yeah, see, lost trains of thought. Dun-dun. If you ask me a short, succinct question, I can answer it. Sometimes I can go off into a tirade like I'm doing with these vlogs. But sometimes if I'm trying to explain a thought process, I will lose my train of thought, which is why there are some topics I will write about and I won't record about. And I feel like it's really prevalent in my videos here on this channel, and it's disappointing because it's not to the same quality as other recorders do. And I'll even do like I've flirted a little bit with voiceovers, and it's just as bad when I'm doing a voiceover, if not worse. Wow, this migraine is killer. So that's not really a solution for me, and I think it's just something that's going to be part of my life that I need to just accept and roll with, and maybe when I'm doing fewer things every day, it will be less of a problem and I can maintain my train of thought a little bit better. Then talking too much, which this whole video, all 30 minutes of this video was talking too much. So, what are some challenges that you currently face? Organization, impulse control, organizing your thoughts. Share them if you're comfortable doing so in the comments below. If you're not comfortable doing so, you can hit me up on Twitter, but that's another shortcoming because I don't always, if you hit me up publicly, I'll respond because I can see it, but I don't check my private messages on Twitter. I forget they exist. So that's another ADHD problem, is that I can't keep every ball rolling, and that's probably why one of the contributing factors to why my career has gone nowhere, is I can't keep the balls rolling. I can't respond to things the way people who don't have ADHD might be able to respond. So however you're comfortable contacting me, however you're comfortable talking about the challenges you face, you can do a response vlog if you like. That's cool, that's legit. I look forward to hearing from you guys. Like I said in the last vlog, I am not necessarily looking for any negativity in this. This is me trying to be brave and honestly sharing an aspect of my life with people who can honestly benefit from hearing this. So I'm not looking to talk about whether or not this is a real thing. I'm also not necessarily looking to talk about medication. However, if you guys have some solutions for some of these problems, I would be interested in hearing about them, especially if you also have ADHD or someone you love has ADHD. So if you have firsthand experience and it's worked for you, I would love to hear it. I know there are a myriad of challenges that other people face with ADHD. Those were just some of the ones that affect my professional life and my personal life. That was not a conclusive list. And I have a wonderful book for you guys to read if you're interested in learning some tips, tricks, and ways to deal with your ADHD down in the description below. It is aimed specifically for women with ADHD, and I can't remember the exact title right off the top of my head, but I'm currently reading it on Kindle. And even though many of the tips are not necessarily applicable to me, there's one that really stands out where they talk about prioritization, which is something I really struggle with, because for me, everything is equally important, which means everything gets done, but very slowly. And what she does is she writes a list, and then she assigns a number 1 through 4 when it needs to be finished, and then the priority it needs to be finished in. So she assigns 2 numbers, 1 through 4. She multiplies the 2, and then she reassigns the list. And I really like that idea because I have a lot of trouble prioritizing, and it often feels like everything is due at the same time, all the time, forever. Everything's due tomorrow. And that's that anxiety playing in. So I really like that tip, and I am going to try to start using it in my own life. And I think that book might be helpful to many of you guys, especially there's like tips on cooking, which isn't so much an issue for me because I like to cook. But there's tips on cleaning, which are great, and tips on professional, like dressing professionally, which again isn't really an issue I struggle with because I enjoy getting dressed, but I do need to clean out my closet because nothing fits anymore. So maybe I should take those tips. But I will see you guys next week with another My Life with ADHD blog. I hope this was helpful for you guys, and I look forward to hearing from you. Bye!